So some interesting developments in this particular episode of Vinland Saga. Now, after the episode, I usually like to pull out the manga and see if they changed anything or did anything different. And this episode actually kind of did a lot different, but at the same time, it's pretty much straightforward what the manga represents. The one interesting thing about this episode is, as most episodes are adapting 2 to 3 chapters at a time, this one really only adapts one chapter and about 2/3 of another chapter, but it also switches the order. So pull up the manga to double check, and it actually starts with chapter 73, showing Thorfinn and Einar cutting down the final tree that they have for their field. They're going to have to pull out the stumps and then plant the crops, and according to how the system is set up on the farm, once they're able to grow enough crops that would equal the price of their freedom, they will receive that freedom. And Kaito himself comes by and allows them the opportunity also to stay working on the farm as a farmhand if that's what they choose. And then they'll actually be, financially compensated. They'll actually be working a job instead of just being a slave. So probably essentially doing the same thing, but at least you're getting paid this time and you have better accommodations. But that is the offer that is on the table. And right before that offer is given, Thorfinn and Einar sit down and begin to talk about what they're going to do once they become free. And the funny thing is that neither of them really know exactly what they're going to do. And this is something that probably happened oftentimes throughout history, where you have been a slave for so long that if you eventually do receive freedom, you're kind of in this position of like, you're so used to a certain way of life. It's like, what do you do now? Especially when you got to start from nothing, when you start from ground zero and you don't have any connections or anything. Einar lost his family. Thorfinn still has family out there, but they haven't seen him since he was 6 years old. He doesn't even know if they're still in the same location at this point in the story. So it's like, what do you do at this point if you become free? Einar starts talking about a couple ideas and possibilities, but I love how Thorfinn, he looks at his hands, and I think there's a symbolism there of what he has experienced in life and what brings him to this decision, because there's obviously a lot of scars on his hands, a lot of wounds from fighting, from knives, and everything that he experienced within the mercenary band of Askeladd. But there is also, his like beaten down fingernails from like the digging and the axe swinging and planting crops and everything that he's been doing on the farm. And his physical body is like a representation of what he has gone through. It is the evidence. Every scar on your body tells a story. All of it builds to who you are as a person. So every single little indentation, every single mark, every single scar, every single bruise, it's all the entire history of what has built Thorfinn to this moment and to this idea. And he looks at Einar and he wonders, do you think it would be possible to rid the world of war and slavery, which is such a ridiculous ideological idea that could never happen in a million years? But Thorfinn says it with such conviction, and Einar looks at Thorfinn and says, it sounds like a dream, honestly, like some kind of fantasy, some far away, not realistic idea whatsoever. But there's a look in Thorfinn's eyes, just weighing the options, thinking about what he could possibly do when he becomes free. And within his eyes, there's this kind of semblance of hope, this kind of semblance of determination of like, could this actually be possible? Could I possibly do this in some way? How would I accomplish that? And the gears start turning in Thorfinn's mind. And before we get any real explanation about what his idea for that would be, they're interrupted by Ketil. But still, that seed has been planted, and it's been planted ever since the dream sequence of the last episode, but also ever since the very beginning. There is this idea that, is there a way to make this possible? And in order to do that, what kind of battles would you have to face? What does it mean to be a true warrior? What is the cost of that? And I think that perfectly coincides with the Canute storyline that we flow into within this episode and within this portion of the story that is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, but still with very similar ideals. Because Canute's original idea, when he kind of had his revelation, was that he wanted to create a heaven on earth, and he was going to do that by any means possible. And instead of going in a pure, peaceful route, he is basically trying to acquire as much power as possible to force that to happen. Not convince people to do it, but to make them do it. And what does that mean? What do you have to do on that end? What kind of sacrifices do you have to make through that experience to make that happen? So the majority of this episode is focused on Canute, and we realize before that he's been poisoning people that he needs to poison in order to gain more power, and even when it comes to his own brother Harold, he is willing to do that. Now, the anime does something that the manga does not, that once again, I really, really appreciate the anime adaptation version of. Just like when they added new scenes in season 1, I think that these scenes that they added in this episode bring a whole new context to what happens between Canute and Harold. And not that you don't understand that through dialogue in the manga, but it's one thing to hear people talk about it, but it's another thing to see it and to experience it. Because basically what is happening is between England and Denmark, the rule is split up between the two kings, between Canute and Harold, and Canute is assassinating Harold by poison so that he doesn't know that it was him in any way, shape, or form. Harold has no heirs, so therefore complete control will go to Canute. And Canute is justifying this by saying that two kings is only going to cause problems anyways. There could be conflict in some way. He doesn't want that to happen, and he wants to continue his pursuit and his ideals, again, by any means possible. But the thing is that Canute and Harold never really had an antagonism towards each other. Even in season 1, in the first arc of the story, you know, there is sort of this succession going on, this war for succession of who's going to get the throne, and even King Sweyn didn't want Canute to have it, preferred Harold, so there was going to be this sort of conflict between them, but it was never between Canute and Harold themselves. It was between the politics and the ideologies going on around them, you know, and it didn't have anything to do with their relationship. In the manga, you don't really get to see any of their relationship besides just what's through dialogue and what's through the exposition. But in this episode, they decided to throw in a flashback scene of Canute and Harold as children. Also was really cool because we got to see Ragnar again, and how Canute like admired him and looked up to him. And even though the flashback is just about two kids playing a game, it still showed that Harold was kind of trying to push Canute to make him be a more competent, stronger person also, where we have Ragnar once again who kind of babied Canute and, you know, took too much care of him to the point where Canute wasn't really able to make his own decisions or never really experienced enough hardships to kind of grow that thicker skin as time went on. And we see like he's all padded up, and when he falls, Ragnar is like, oh my gosh, are you okay? You know, he babied him so much because he loved him so much. But even Harold is saying, you know, let him get up on his own. Let him be able to do this, you know? So there was that sort of like older brother sharing the experience, trying to make his younger brother stronger, trying to give him love, give him care, nurturing, but at the same time allow him to grow into the kind of person that he should be. And because they added just something as simple as that, something as simple as just the care of an older brother looking after his younger brother, it brings whole new meaning to the eventual assassination of King Harold, and how Canute really at this point in time is becoming no different than any other ruler and any other, I don't want to say tyrant, but yeah, tyrant. King Sweyn in season 1 warns Canute about the curse of the crown and what it means, and that you think that you want the crown, but once you actually have it, there's not just the responsibility of being a ruler, but there is the burden that comes with that, of the idea that, well, one, your crown could be taken away at any moment, and two, that you're never satisfied with the amount that you have, and you're always going to want more, and you're always going to want to take more. You have this innate desire to conquer, to rule, to become the king of as much as you can. And the people that you have to take down along the way in order to do that. There is no king that is just loved by everybody. Somewhere along the line, somebody's going to feel betrayed. Someone's going to feel left out. Someone's going to feel like they've been taken advantage of. Someone is going to die. Something is going to go wrong in the pursuit of control, of being a king. And that is eventually what happens. And it's gone so far that it's even happened to Canute's brother, somebody that he doesn't even have a problem with, but somebody that needs to go in order for Canute to accomplish what he wants. And each time Canute makes a decision like that, he is seeing visions of King Swain's severed head. All of the warnings that Swain gave him, all of the reasons that he hated Swain and hated his father, coming back within Canute himself, to the point where the only person Canute feels like he can talk to is his father, who is dead and a severed head laughing at him on the ground. That is the only person you feel comfort talking to, is the vision of your father's severed head. But that is the price of the throne and the curse of the crown, as Swain tried to warn. But now we are seeing a whole new version of Canute, and on the opposite side, we are seeing a whole new version of Thorfinn. Two men, similar ideals, completely opposite positions in life: king, slave, conquer, rid the world of war and slavery. Like, I just love the parallel of these two characters and where life has taken them. Where they were once together, in Askeladd's band, and now they are just on polar opposite ends of the spectrum with the same kind of original inception of an idea, but completely different ways to handle that idea. And I love how the story is leading the two characters that eventually on these parallels. And we know that Keitel in this episode said that he needs to go speak to King Harold. Well, there's not going to be a King Harold, so I'm super excited for what's coming next. Also, I think that the anime may continue to change the scenes around as to what comes next, because in the manga, the very next thing that happens, again, I'm not going to spoil, but it is not anything that is shown in the previews for the next episode. So there's something that happens in the manga that kind of sets up another thing that's going to happen on the farm. But the previews for the next episode are showing a completely different scenario that happens a little bit after that. So I'm wondering where the anime is going to go moving forward, if it's kind of going to continue to change things around. I'm sure it's going to bring it all back together because it's all one story. So, you can't, move the timeline that much because it wouldn't make sense. So they're probably just going to do this for right now. But we do see the introduction of a new character in the next episode that I am so excited to see in animation. Like, I didn't realize how happy it would make me to see him until I saw him in the previews for the next episode, and it just dawned on me, we haven't seen this guy in the anime yet, and we see him in the next episode. I'm like, oh dude, I'm so happy to see him. So if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, man. So anyways, love the episode, love the parallel dynamics between Thorfinn and Canute, and I love how the story represents that. And a lot of crazy stuff coming forward, man. So if you're sticking on board with season 2, we're almost halfway through it, but we got a lot of stuff to happen. I don't want to say anything. A lot of stuff is going to happen. So if you guys like this video, if you like this review, please let me know, and please comment and like the video because that will help it out in the algorithm. Also, if you'd like to support the channel on a deeper level, I would really appreciate it if you did. I have channel memberships turned on. It's just either $1, $5, or $10, whatever you want to do a month. Everyone gets the same perks, so it's just a matter of what you want to contribute to the channel. See exclusive contents, new videos every month. You see a bunch of movies that I made when I was younger. A lot of fun stuff on there. Hopefully more like reaction content's going to come on there too. Patreon as well has got a bunch of various tiers and perks on there for you to check out. Merch store, get yourself a motherfucking Zod shirt. And there's the various social media links where you can follow me down below. Other than that, guys, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.